students and Assalamu alaikum. I hope that you all are doing well. Here I come up with some new lecture of the subject SST. Yes, today we are going to start the second chapter of this book, that is the satellite Earth. You can find it on page number 10. Satellite Earth on page number 10, and it proceeds till page 15. Okay, what we were going to discuss in this chapter about the atmospheric changes that takes place throughout the year, throughout the day, how the day forms, how the year forms, and how the seasonal changes occurs around the Earth. As you know that Earth is the second most orbit of our solar system, and it is the only orbit which has the light. So we find that how the day starts and how the day completes. What are the things which leads to the formation of the day? When the sun complete one rotation around its axis, it results in the formation, in the completion of one day. Do remember that I use the word axis. This is the complete orbit. If it is a complete orbit, I must say, if this is the orbit of the sun or the orbit of the earth, so when one day is complete, it moves just slightly, that it has completed the one rotation around its axis, and it moves slight forward, and the day has been divided into 12 hours of the daylight and the 12 hours of the darkness, that is night. So it means that day comprises of 24 hours. And which thing forms the day? When the sun moves around its axis. Alright? And it moves lighter. When one day complete, it moves the little bit along its axis. Okay? Then the day leads to the year. How the year forms? When the earth complete its one rotation around the sun along its orbit. It's a one day, it moves forward. Again, other day, it moves forward. In the same manner, it takes 365 days to complete the revolution, to revolve around the sun, but in its respective orbit. And 1 year takes 365 plus 0.25 days. What is this 0.25? It is 365 days plus 6 hours. But these 6 hours are not useless. We used to count it after every 4 years that comprise one day. How? Let's discuss in another heading. After every 4 years, we have a leap year. How? Because every year we have 365 days along with the 6 hours. When these 6 hours after 4 years combine together, it becomes equal to 24 hours, that is equal to 1 day. And when we will add 1 day into 365 days, it forms 366 days, that is our leap year, and it comes after every 4 years. Yes, this is something very interesting to know, that a year completes in 365.25 days. So it means that 0.25 is not useless. These 6 hours are not useless. Okay, now you get to know why we have the leap years in our calendar after every 4 years, just because of this additional 6 hours that requires, that completes after every 1 year. Understand? If we talk about the time zones, how the time generate, how we can calculate the time. So the idea has been given to us by some ancient Greek peoples who used to calculate the timings by the movement of the sun and the length of the shadow that forms on the surface of the earth. How? That when the sun rises, the shadow on the surface of the earth, it was larger, and then it becomes smaller as the sun comes in the center. And at the noon time, we could not see any of the shadow on the surface of the earth. And after the noon time, it reverses that, and from smaller to it becomes larger again till the sun sets. So the ancient people developed the time on that base, and now we have different sort of the clocks. But previously we were having the sundials that only works with the movement of the sun, that can tell us the formation of the shadow according to its length. So we can calculate the time, and they have evolved the time zones. Okay? And if we talk about the season, we have different seasons. How the season changes? It changes just because of the tilt of the surface of the, when the earth tilts along its axis, slight tilt towards the pole leads to the change of the season. Okay? When we have the summer, so it means that the earth tilts towards the sun. And when we have the winter season, it means that the earth tilted away from the sun. And there are some countries in the earth that have complete 24 hours of the darkness during winters just because they move away from the sun, and complete 24 hours of this daylight during summers because they move towards the sun. So it happens, this seasonal changes happens just because of the tilt of the earth along its orbit, along its poles. Okay, what is the summer solstice? Summer solstice is the day or having the greater hours of the sunlight during summer. That day is called as summer solstice. It comes once during the summer season. What is the winter solstice? It is a day which have the greatest hours of the night, means the darkness. That day is called as the winter solstice, and it comes once during the season of winter. What about equinoxes? Equinoxes is the day having equal number of the daylight, having the hours of equal hours of the daylight and equal hours of the night. So that day is called as equinoxes. Alright, that is all related to this topic, in which we cover the how days form, how the year is formed, how we have experienced the seasonal changes, how the time zones have been developed. Okay, and if still you have any sort of the questions related to the topic of satellite Earth, you can ask. Understand? Now, don't forget to make the title pages. Let's discuss the word meanings first. Axis. I told you what is an axis. It is an imaginary line in the center of any object, like in the center of the earth. I told you what is the axis, around which it moves to complete one day. What is rotation? The complete revolution around the sun, or action of rotating. Equator. What is an equator? It is an imaginary line on the surface of the earth. If we talk about the globe of the earth, so the central line, this is the central line that divides the earth into two equal halves. This is called as equator, and it is at 0 degrees centigrade. It is just an imaginary line. Fine. And what is the satellite? It is, we can say that a planet which helps us to collect information. Fine. Now, coming towards the fill in the blanks, the abbreviation of ideal is dash. You can find in the key facts or in the chapter as well. The dash star is in the constellation of Ursa Minor. You can find the answer easily in the chapter. A whole day includes dash and dash. A complete day of 24 hours has been divided into two parts of 12 hours of dash and 12 hours of dash. What are they? The dash spins on its axis, which spins on its axis that leads for the completion of one day, and every spin leads to the completion of a year after 365.25 days. Okay, what is that? What is the name of that planet? Lines of dash around the earth are parallel. Here to explain it, this is the globe and this is the imaginary line of equator. So there are some lines which generate imaginary lines that runs in this manner. These are called as longitudes. And the lines which runs parallel, these are called as latitudes. Now you can grab the answer from the given information. Alright. Now let's discuss the question answers. Question number 1. In which direction the earth rotates on its axis? The direction of the earth is like this. Which direction is this? Clockwise or anti-clockwise? Just grab it. Question number 2. In which direction does the earth orbits the sun? Again, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Third one. How long does the earth take to complete one rotation around the sun? To complete 1 year. How many days? Okay. You need to write those number of the days. Then question number 2. What do we call the shortest day in the winter? I explained in my lecture. Only the name of that day which comes once during the season of the winter, having shortest day and the longer night. Then what do we call the longest day in summer? Okay, having the greatest hours of the sunlight and a small number of the shortest night. Then what do we call the day that has equal hours of the daylight and the darkness? Okay. Next, why do the north and the south poles have 24 hours of darkness during winter? I told you in my lecture why do there are some countries which experience 24 hours of the darkness during winter, because of the movement of the earth towards or away from the sun. And the same question has been asked, but you will have to define about the daylight. Okay, why there is 24 hours of the daylight during summer? Then how many days are there in a leap year? We have mentioned, we have discussed it. Just write down the number of days. Why do leap year occurs after every 4 years? There is one reason. I have explained you in a very detail and try to explain it in 1 to 2 lines. That why we have leap years after every 4 years? Why not after every 2 years and then? Okay, that is all related to all the questions we have discussed. If still you have any sort of the question, query, you can ask in the comment section. That is all for today's class. Hopefully to meet you again with some other lecture, with some other topic. Till then, take care and Allah Hafiz.